happy Monday. I am excited to jump on. It has been a day, already has been a very eventful Monday. Um, but I'm glad we're here. I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. I am getting my stuff up here. We'll go ahead and get started. Um, we're just doing a part 2 today, y'all, and I'm excited. I think last week we went through a lot of stuff, and I guess I kind of knew coming in that it might have been a two-parter because I did have a lot of info. So I'm glad they were able to break it up, and we actually ended at a really good time before we dive into the rest of the info here. If this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I am a certified mindfulness coach and a pre-licensed therapist. I am coming up towards the end of my program and almost ready for licensure. So I am excited, excited, excited. Um, but this channel is all things mindfulness, right? So we talk about all different topics that are voted on a weekly basis. And we do this live every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So definitely drop in to come and see us every week. If you haven't already, make sure to like the live, share the live, and if you haven't subscribed, why not? You might as well just join in, right? The water is fine. And today's live is actually a follow up, part 2 to last week's live, where we started talking about the cost of being strong. So you can always, go back to that live and watch the first part. I'll do a small little recap and then we'll dive into like the information that we'll talk about today. But I hope this live is helpful. I hope the information is helpful. I hope it brings some type of um, I don't know, newfound perspective when thinking about always having to be strong, always feel like you having to just pull up your bootstraps and keep going rather than listening to what your body is feeling, what your mind is feeling, all of the racing thoughts, all of the hyper vigilance, all of the things, right? Um, so, what we'll do tonight is where did I leave off last week? Last week I left off at so how do we begin to start changing the pattern? So that's kind of where we ended. But what I started through, we talked about the chronic resilience and what that looks like, the cost of always being strong, right? So we talked about how that may show up in your life. It may show up in hyper independence or parentification, emotional suppression, protected perfectionism, chronic survival mode, fawning, cultural. There's a cultural aspect to all of those things. So make sure to go back and watch the first one, so that way you can get all that information. And you can always come back to this live. We also talked about the additional emotional costs, what that looks like. We talked about the physical costs, what it does to the body. And then we also just kind of talked through, like in detail, how it may show up in the body. So we talked about burnout, headaches, digestive issues, just high cortisol levels, brain fog, all of the things. There were a few questions from last week too that we answered. We talked about shame and guilt. We talked about just what that may look like, the conscious and the subconscious and the conscious, and how that may look um, to each individual and how it may look differently. So we talked about a lot last week, by the way. We went through a lot. So I'm glad that everyone that's here is here. We want to dive into a little bit more details. If you guys watched the live or were here last week, definitely let me know in the comments, in the chat. Drop a heart if you were here last week. If not, just let me know where you're watching from. Let me know where you're watching from, how you are today, all of the things. Okay. And y'all caught me on braid takedown day. So, yeah, the hat is here and it's going to stay. Okay. All right. So how do we talked about all the patterns, we talked about all of the things, we talked about how it shows up, we talked about all of where we can see all of the evidence of being strong, right? Thank you for watching, Jesse in Mississippi. I appreciate you. So yeah, so we talked about all of the things. So now, how do we change this pattern, right? Like Debbie, we talked about how it shows up. I know where it shows in my body. I know how it shows for me emotionally. I know all of the things. How do I change it? How do I start? What do I do? What's the first step? Glad you asked. It's the first thing I'm going to walk through. So the first thing that you want to do is notice the patterns that you experience without judgment, right? Notice the patterns that you experience without judgment. It may look different in different people, and sometimes we just try to compare ourselves to what we see, and like, I'm not that bad, so it's not interrupting my life or it's not an issue for me. May not be the case. Okay, so notice your patterns and how they show up for you and how they affect you. All right, and do it without judgment. This isn't about you beating yourself up about it. It's not even about reflecting too much on why it is or why it's there. It's more so of noticing and being able to initiate interruption, right? So, interruption is basically I see a pattern, I want to do a small little step, even if it's very minute, to start to change or adjust that pattern, whether it's a physical pattern or if it's just a mental way of thinking or a new perspective or a new mindset. Okay. So notice your patterns. Notice when your body is tensing up, when you're in situations, when you automatically say, I got it, never mind, let me just do it. Let me just, when you're noticing those cognitions in your mind of like, just let me do it. I'll get it. I got it. I don't need any help. Those comments that you may be having, right? When you begin to feel guilty for resting, or you begin to feel shame for resting, or you tell yourself that you should be doing something when you're exhausted, right? That's ignoring your, I don't even want to say weaknesses. That's your ignoring your human self. That's ignoring your human experience, right? So when you start to feel guilty or feel shame or even feel angry at yourself for resting, when asking for help feels uncomfortable, okay? If you need help, you need help. You know that you're not going to be able to do it yourself, whether it be a physical reason or a mental or reason, or even just like, hey, I don't have, this isn't my wheelhouse. This isn't something that I know about. And it becomes super uncomfortable for you to just say, hey, I need help here. That's an indicator, right? Of wanting to be strong or wanting to portray yourself as being strong, right? Or when you emotionally shut down instead of expressing your needs. So instead of you saying what you need, instead of you talking through the things that you're feeling, instead of you, being vulnerable in a state, you find yourself withdrawn, shutting down, overwhelmed, right? Um, Hi, Crano, welcome in. Hi, Brittany, thank you for coming in. So yeah, so these are just things that you can notice, right? That, okay, maybe I am trying to be too strong here. Okay, this is just awareness, not saying you have to do anything with it yet, just starting to notice how it shows up for you. All right. And then number two, notice when your body speaks. Typically, when it comes to your nervous system and when things are interrupting your nervous system, your body is going to tell you before your mind will, especially when this isn't a normal pattern for you to actually cognitively say, okay, something's going on, something's wrong, right? Um, Hi, sci-fi fan, welcome in. Yes, please hit the like button if you have not. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. Okay, so we said one, notice your patterns without judgment. Number two, notice when your body speaks. What is your body feeling? Right? When it's time for you to ask for help, what happens in your body? Does your heart start to palpitate? Do you get tense in your shoulders? Does your jaw clench? Does your hands clench? Do you start to get pain or butterflies in your stomach? Like, what happens when these situations come up? So you notice the situation, right? You notice that your body tenses or that you automatically say that you got it or I don't need help. or you start to feel guilt when you're resting, or you start to feel uncomfortable when you need to ask for help. You're noticing all of those things, then what happens to the body? What's your body feeling? Okay. When are you actually tired, right? Are you noticing when your exhaustion starts to show up? Or is it too late when you finally figure it out, right? When do you feel overwhelmed, right? If you're having an overwhelming feeling, do you notice it when it's happening? Or again, does it happen? Do you notice it after the fact? Is it noticeable after you blow up, or off after you tell people off, or after you shut down, right? Oftentimes we may notice these things happening in the body or just in the mind way after it's already happened, and we may have already had actions that we didn't necessarily want to have, and then we start to feel guilt and shame because of those actions, right? So this is all about noticing before it gets to that point. Okay. um what tension have you normalized in your body? Have you always had pain in your back, or always had pain in your neck, always had pain in your jaw, right? Always had pain or had like palpitations here and there, right? Sometimes when we're always feeling strong and are trying to be strong, and we spend a lot of time in that state, our body has been telling us, but then we ended up normalizing it to the point where we don't even notice it anymore, where we get this huge drop in our stomach when it comes to asking for help, but we just kind of ignore that, and we don't even notice it, right? So think about your body and what tension you have normalized over the years, and start bringing that stuff up to the forefront. No, actually, I do have a little bit of tension in my neck or in my shoulders when I have to ask for help, or I do feel a huge sense of shame when I feel like I really need to rest, right? So thinking about all of those things. Make sure there's anything else when it comes to noticing the body. What do you typically brush off that are actually indicators of stress? What we often call normal stress is sometimes just our body in survival mode. So that's kind of like what I mentioned. So oftentimes when you are in this state of I always have to be strong, I always have to stay strong, oftentimes you're always in survival mode. You're always in fight or flight, always. And that's your normal state that becomes to feel normal. It's your default state rather than rest being your default state. And that does a lot of wear and tear on the body. That's how you start to get ailments, you get diseases pop up. This is how people have strokes. This is how people have like heart issues. This is how people have hypertension. All of the things, even autoimmune disorders, right? That's how it shows up. It can show up from stress up on the body. Okay. So that was one and two. Notice your patterns without judgment, and then notice when your body speaks. Um, Watching from North Carolina, welcome in. I'm going fast, Josh. I'm going too fast. You need me to slow down? And you need me to go back anywhere? Um, but yeah, that was number one. Notice your patterns without judgment. Number two, notice when your body speaks. Um, I know I carry stress in my body all the time. I'm in survival mode all of the time. I'm a teacher. Yeah, teachers, you guys have to be hyper vigilant all the time. Yeah. And school year took a toll on me mentally, emotionally, and physically. Yeah. So for those who are in stressful jobs, you have to pay even more attention to your stress levels, your body, and what your how your body responds to stress. And you also have to pay a little bit more attention to how you care for yourself. So you'll need both proactive, we all need both proactive and reactive self care. Like that's just a common human experience, right? But for those who are in like jobs like a teacher, first responders, doctors, nurses, anyone that has a higher stress job, And anyone that has a job where someone else's life is on the line based off of like your actions and how you respond, um, those are hype. You're gonna your nervous system is already trained to be hyper vigilant because of the job that you have, which just means that you would have to take a little bit more care to how you care for yourself because you thrive in your work by being hyper vigilant. Does that make sense? So your self-care, your regimen for regulation, even just as a therapist, like I have a caseload, and even with that, I've also seen that I myself have to be a little bit more intentional about self care. I'm pre licensed, y'all. I'm not saying I'm licensed yet. I'm an intern, okay? but in that, um, but in that, there is like an element where you have to take a little bit of extra care. And when I say self care, I'm not talking about spa days. I'm not talking about like vacations. And not to say that you can't do those things, but I think when people think of self care, they think of these extraordinary, extravagant things that a lot of us don't either have the money for or the time for. Self care is more so of your routine, how you start your day, how you end your day, how you take your breaks, right? Staying hydrated, staying fed, making sure that you notice the parts of the day that are more difficult for you than others, and then doing something and putting something in place of that to ensure that you have something to take care of yourself. It's journaling. It's you can do therapy, but you also can just do affirmations, declarations in the morning. There's so many different things that you can do, and it's going to be based off of like your needs. It could just be going out and getting sun, right? Because a lot of us lack vitamin D. So just thinking about what that looks like for you and thinking about both proactive ways you can care for yourself and reactive ways that you can care for yourself. Because some days are just going to be really, really tough, and then other days you'll be fine. So you'll have to find, there is no real balance in this when it comes to self care, but you'll have to find ways to give yourself little spurts of care throughout the day versus you trying to just, oh, I'm gonna go get a massage, or oh, I'm gonna plan this vacation, because that stuff gets so far and few in between, and you have frustration now, right? It could be as simple as breath work in between classes. It can be as simple as, what else is like really small, playing music, while the kids are outside playing, and you have that little bit of time, if it's just 20 minutes for lunch, whatever that looks like for you. But you do want to make sure that you stay on top of it a little bit more than the average person. um Leah, I am a child of the most high God, Jesus Christ. Yes, I am. um let's see here. Jesse, meditations are one of the only things that can help me relax. Oh, I love that. I'm glad that it's helpful. Let's see here. And I know, Jesse, did you see that I do have a meditation for teachers? I hope you've seen that one. Makes a lot of sense. I journal, I color. Yeah, I paint and meditate and pray. Some days are just harder than others. Yeah. And it's okay to have a bad day, you know? It's okay that your day is hard. And I think that we feel like just because we have a hard day that we're not in a good state just because of how we feel. Emotions ebb and flow. So oftentimes you're going to have to allow your emotions to come and go. And just because you had a hard emotional day or just had a hard day in general doesn't mean that there isn't, beauty on the other side. But I would say, Jesse, really, really think about your routine. Your routine is going to be very important for you. Hi, Mark. Welcome in. Okay. Where did we leave off? My bad, y'all. We were talking about, okay, so number one was notice your patterns without judgment. Number two was notice when your body speaks. Number three, redefine what strength is. This is critical, you guys. This is so critical. redefine what strength is. Sometimes our definition is built on irrational expectations. It's built on how we were conditioned as children. It's built on our past traumas and the things that we experienced. And because of those, even those things going in tandem, right? We had this conditioning as children, suck it up, don't cry, all of those things. And then we have trauma where we experience people not coming through or not following through, right? Or not showing up the way that we needed them to show up. And so because of that, we feel like we have this cognition, or this distortion rather, of what strength actually is. So really thinking about your definition of strength. What do you consider strong? And as you list those things out, get an understanding of, okay, is this true? If I'm not this, is this really mean that I'm not strong, right? And really trying to make the distinction between what is strength and what is just a common human experience. It's a common human experience to be tired. We're not robots. We are not Chat GPT, Claude, what's the other one? Perplexity. We're not robots, okay? We're not machines. We're not these computers. Even computers break down. Even computers need to be reset, and that's a robot, right? So how can we expect for ourselves not to be tired, not to be exhausted, right? So just my understanding what your perspective is on strength and what that means to you, and finding the distortions, finding the lies that you may be telling yourself about being strong. Okay. So strength isn't never breaking, it's not never needing help, it's not carrying everything alone, right? We are um communal people. Like, we're humans, we thrive off of connection. So the lie of I have to do everything by myself, I have to do everything alone, would be a distortion that you would want to reframe, right? um true strength is not self-abandonment. It's not. I know we, especially as women, right, we're taught to self-abandon, especially for being a caretaker, right? Not even if you are just a woman, but just being a caretaker in general, right? And caring for other people, whether it be our children, our parents, our spouses, all our pets, all of the things, right? And we feel like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself to do for this other person. There is an element of that's life, right? There is an element as a parent that you may have to sacrifice yourself for your child, but to what extent, right? If you need rest, then you need rest. You know what, baby? We're not going to be able to go to the playground today. Mommy's tired. I need some time. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. There's mommy guilt and daddy guilt and all of the things that come up because we're exhausted and we feel like we have to be this certain way. And we're human. It's okay to not want to do certain things. Yeah, there are times where you have to push past what you want to do. Absolutely. But sometimes we go too far, y'all. Sometimes we do too much. And we have to know our limits and know when it's time to say enough is enough. Okay. So I hope that's helpful, y'all. Yes, true strength is not never breaking. It's not never needing help. It's not carrying everything alone. It's not self abandonment. True strength looks like, or can look like, setting boundaries, emotional honesty, resting, self awareness, and knowing your limits, and asking for support, asking for help. Okay. So understand that. So that was number three. Redefine what strength is. All right. What are you telling yourself? Really think about that. What are the things that go through your mind when you're trying to push past what your limits? Okay. Um, Not to say that you shouldn't push past your limits, right? Because there's a part of us that want to be resilient, or that should be resilient, that should grow and become a better version of ourselves. That's not what I'm talking about. Y'all know when y'all exhausted. There's a difference between just not wanting to do something, or procrastinating, or pushing something off, and pushing way past your limit. Okay. Um, So yeah, that was number three. Redefine what strength is. Number four, build small moments of safety. Okay. Build small moments of safety. People who feel the need to stay strong don't feel emotionally safe. The nervous system heals through repeated experience of safety, not pressure. Okay. So instead of forcing vulnerability, start with small little steps, right? Whether it be pause before responding. Instead of automatically saying yes, fixing or over explaining yourself, you don't have to react immediately. Okay. If you're a person that always says yes, you have a hard time saying no. Practicing, starting that practice of pausing before responding, starting the practice of giving yourself some space and time to respond, than just responding right away. Like, yeah, sure, I got it. Or volunteering right away. Oh, yeah, I can take it. Pause. Just take a pause and sit back for a little bit before making those decisions. Really think about, is this something that I have the capacity for? Is this taking me over my limits? If I do this, will I be overwhelmed? Right? um Thinking about time. I know sometimes I get time blindness often, where I'm like, where I'll say something and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I can do it. No problem. I can do it. And then really like look, I'm like, oh, you know what? I probably should have said no. So thinking about how it shows up for you and just the pause, just not responding right away can be a small little step. Um, Redefining what strong means is an interesting thing that I would have never thought of. Yeah. Yeah, because you have to understand our actions and our behaviors are related to our thoughts and our emotions, right? So our emotions and our thoughts and our behaviors are all intertwined and linked, right? And what affects our emotions, our thoughts, and our behaviors? Our core beliefs, what we believe internally about a certain situation, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about other people, what we believe about in our environments. And our core beliefs are automatic, right? Like think about the things that you learned as a child. Those things are automatic. Those are things that you just automatically do now. You automatically tie your shoe. You automatically know how to put your jacket on. You automatically, know how to, write, something down. You already know how to read, right? Those are automatic things. Think about those distortions that you learned as a child. Those are just as automatic as those other things I just listed. So when you're thinking about what strength, what your core belief is about strength, there may be some distortions there that you have to tweak to a point where now your core belief and your emotions about it will change, your thoughts about it will change, so your behaviors about it will change. It's all in one big circle. It's actually a triangle. There's a diagram of your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions, because they're all linked. Think about it. When you feel a certain way, you act a certain way, you think a certain way, right? When you think a certain way, you feel a certain way, you act a certain way. It's all noted, it's all together, and it's all linked. And the core of all of those three things is what you believe about yourself and what you believe about others. And just what you believe about just, culturally, what we're expected to be is how we were trained and conditioned. So yeah, you want to think about your ideas of strength and where there's distortions, where there's errors, or where there's new ways of being able to think about it. That's the beginning of it all. That was a mouthful, but I hope that was helpful, y'all. Okay, so yes, building small moments of safety. So we talked about pause before responding, being honest about where you are. Be honest, even if it's just with yourself. Sometimes, again, when it comes to our core beliefs, we often are operating in this way because we're not being honest with ourselves. We're being avoidant, right? Or we're telling ourselves that we can push past or that we can do something even though we're already at our limits or we're already overwhelmed. If you're already overwhelmed, that's already an indicator to slow down. If you're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed," that's automatic. Slow down. You're moving too fast. Okay? So, being honest with where you are, be honest with what you're feeling, be honest with your limitations and your capacity, right? So just be honest with yourself. That's where it starts. Saying when you need help and accepting help. If somebody offers to help, let them help y'all. Now, granted, there are some situations where you're like, you know what, you just saying you want to help just to so I can say, oh no, it's okay, and then that way they can go about their business. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that genuinely have your best interest at heart and they want to help you. Let them help. Okay. Now, if we're talking about small moments or small baby steps, let them help with something small. Okay. If it's really hard for you to allow someone to take over or you're not really trusting them, let them help with something small. Trial run it then. Okay. But if you need help, accept the help. Okay. If you need help and you don't have anyone that has offered, ask for help. Okay. And think about what happens when you go to ask for help. Like, what are the things that you tell yourself when you're going to ask for someone for help and you're like, nah, I'm good. I shouldn't ask. I can do it myself. No, they're going to do it wrong. No, I can do it this way. If I do it this way, then I can get it done by myself. Like, what are the things that you're telling yourself? Again, distortions. Um, I think we talked about this one. Noticing your limits and voicing them without over explaining. That's the part. That's the thing right there. Sometimes we feel like we have to over explain ourselves. No is a complete sentence. No can have a period after it. Okay. So the over explaining is what becomes exhausting. And oftentimes we feel like we have to over explain. We we tell ourselves instead of over explaining, I'm just going to say yes, when we just really just could say no with no over explaining. Does that make sense? Like sometimes we feel like saying no is just going to be a lot of work, and so because we feel like it's going to be a lot of work, we just say yes anyway. I know I've done that. I've done that a few times. Like, you know what? I feel like me saying no is going to be a headache. So I might as well just say yes. No, just say no. It's fine. It's all right. Okay. Um, and then another way to build small moments, being proactive with rest. Resting before exhaustion. Sometimes we rest after we have already met our well, not even say met, we've already surpassed our limit and capacity. And because we're already surpassed it, we have like high levels of exhaustion, and then we want to say we're tired. And then when we don't get the chance to actually rest because we're already past our limits, we become irritable, frustrated. Everybody, people chewing is annoying. Okay. People closing doors hard is annoying, right? Someone playing music, in the house next door now is heavily annoying, right? We're super irritable. That's because we waited too long to rest. So being proactive with your rest, that goes back to what I was saying to Jesse earlier, as far as like setting a routine, making sure that you have routine and planning your rest, planning your breaks, planning your lunches, right? When you have lunch, walk away from your desk, okay? Not trying to, and I say this as someone who still eats while working, trying to get better, but finding rest wherever you can and planning it and being intentional about it, being consistent about it, and protecting your time, right? I started putting lunch on my calendar because sometimes I would, bypass it and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to eat while I work. No, put it on your calendar. Nope. Right now is lunch. I'm going to go about finding me something to eat and I'm going to sit down, maybe go out on my balcony and sit and eat and take some time away from my desk, right? I'm at a desk from, I would say every day I'm at a desk from 8 to like 14 hours between working full time, doing my internship, and doing my classes. I'm at my desk 8 to 14 hours a day, right? So I have to be very intentional about my physical body. Getting out, I walk in the mornings. I get out around 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning. I go for a walk. about 30 to 45 minutes. I come back, I stretch, get in a shower, all of the things, and then I start my day. Then throughout my day, I stand up from my desk and I may do some stretching, or I may, sit, somewhere else, or I might, go and just even just throw some stuff in the laundry, just kind of give myself something else to do instead of sitting at the desk all day. So it's based off of your day. Now, if you have a job where you walk all day, right? Where you maybe are a nurse or you're a teacher or you're like walking around and doing a lot all day, then your rest may be just sitting somewhere, maybe going out going out on outside and just sitting on a bench for 15 minutes, or it could be so many different things, but or doing something maybe low level when it comes to working out, and maybe like more stretching, or there's a place called the Stretch Lab where someone will stretch you for you, right? There's so many different things that you can do, but it's going to be based off of your routine. Um, I almost find myself declining someone else's help, so I appreciate the tips to start with small things. Yeah, I would still only say yes though if it's really needed. Yeah, I mean, you can. It's not about like being super stringent on it, but it's about being aware, noticing what's happening, and doing small little baby steps, right? And as you start to do those small baby steps and those things start to work, you'll start to build confidence in it, and you'll push a little bit more, and then you'll push a little bit more, and then you'll push a little bit more, right? So it's really just based off of, I'm not saying you can't help people, you can't do things for people and all those things. It's just about taking that extra second to say, can I do this? Should I do this? Do I have capacity? Am I at my limit? What can I do and what can I do? And being honest with yourself about it, because ultimately we're wondering why we're so stressed, right? We navigating life and we're wondering why we're so stressed, and it could be just literally those small little steps that can make all the difference. Okay, it could be that one no that saves your week, right? It could have been that one no that saves your month. It could have been that one no that saves your hour. It doesn't mean, it could be very small, but this is just a matter of awareness. Um, okay, so that was number 4. So the ways to change the pattern, we'll go back to number 1. Number 1 was notice your patterns without judgment. Number 2, notice when your body speaks. Number 3, redefine what strength is. That's key, guys. Redefine what strength is. Notice what you're telling yourself about what being strong is. And then number 4, build small moments of safety. Okay. Make sure there's nothing else missing here. And I have reflection questions that y'all can take away. Um, okay, so safety is not something you find all at once. It's something you practice in small moments until your nervous system learns to do it on its own. This leads to bigger moments of safety, like setting boundaries for yourself and others, adjusting your routine and schedule, changing your environment, or disconnecting from toxic relationships. So, yeah, this is kind of like what I was saying to Sci Fi Fan. It Once you're able to take these small little baby steps, you'll then be able to build more confidence in doing the thing, right? And then it will help you to take those bigger moments. Maybe changing your routine right now is too much for you, and that's okay. Starting small and then working your way up to that can make all the difference. Okay. Hi Akuma, welcome on. Yeah, so just like understanding that this is baby little steps. This isn't about you making a drastic change tomorrow. It's all about noticing, making adjustments, shifting your mindset and your perspectives, and taking small actions. Okay? All right, reflection questions. I got a few, y'all, but I really wanted to make sure that I gave you all questions based on where you are and thinking about being the strong one, right? So, my first question, feel free to write these down. And feel free to journal on these. If any of these questions don't feel true to you or not really working for you, that's okay. You don't have to write those down. Write down the ones that make the most sense for you to really think about and dwell on. If it's anything that you feel is too hard for you to walk through yourself, then by all means, if you're seeing a life coach or if you're seeing a therapist, by all means, taking it into your sessions with them and saying, hey, like I came across this question, I'm not quite sure how I want to answer it, but I know that I want to answer it, and walk through it with someone. If you're not doing life coaching, or if you're not doing therapy, this is always someone that you can talk through with a trusted friend, right? This is someone that may know, or a family member, someone that may know and love you and knows how you show up in certain situations. They may be able to give you some insight too. Okay. So the first question: who would I be if I didn't always have to hold everything together for everyone? Who would I be if I didn't always have to hold everything together for everyone? I'll say that one more time. Who would I be if I didn't always have to hold everything together for everyone? Okay? And you can rephrase this based off of your situation. It could be: if I didn't have to hold everything together for everyone, if I didn't have to hold everything together for myself, if I didn't have to hold everything together for my family, if I didn't have to hold everything together for my friends, for my children, right? You can change that verbiage based off of your current situation. Um, but oftentimes, now I'm going to say this with a caveat. There are instances where we have a lot of responsibility. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking on the responsibilities that are not necessarily ours to take on. For example, if you're in a relationship with someone and they are emotionally unstable, and you feel the need to hold everything together within that relationship, that's not a fair relationship. They're responsible for their emotions, you're responsible for your emotions. And so if you feel like you have to hold everything together for that relationship to work, whether that be a romantic relationship, a friendship, family members, all of the things, then this is a great question for you to ask yourself. What would it be if I didn't have to always hold everything together for everyone? What would life look like? Who would you be? Right? Number two, what emotions have I ignored in the name of being strong? This goes back to understanding your cognition surrounding strength, okay? Or distortions, rather. What emotions have I ignored in the name of being strong? What are the things that you've ignored about yourself? What are the needs that you've ignored about yourself in order to continue to be strong or appear to be strong? That's two different things. Sometimes you do have to go ahead and be strong, but sometimes we fake in the funk, y'all. And I'm going to be real, real honest, okay? Sometimes we are faking the funk. So, what emotions have I ignored in the name of being strong or in the name of appearing strong? Right? You could be wanting to appear strong to your kids, right? You could be wanting to appear strong to your spouse, to your family members, to your friends, to everybody, right? Your coworkers, that's a big one, because oftentimes we don't want to spill our personal stuff that we have going on at work. So we have to show up a certain way and appear strong when we know internally we are just confused, frustrated, and irritable. It doesn't mean that you have to be vulnerable at work with your coworkers. That's not what I'm saying. It just means that you have to notice it within yourself and deal with it at home, right? Process it at home. Find a way to be vulnerable with your close friends and family, right? But going into work and just appearing strong and not dealing with the stuff is what creates the stress. I feel like I'm preaching, but I hope that makes sense, y'all. I don't want to be on a soapbox. Let me know in the comments if this holds true. I don't want to preach at y'all, but I mean, I felt that in spirit. Okay, so that was what emotions have I ignored in the name of being strong? Number three, when did strength stop feeling empowering and start feeling exhausting? When did strength stop feeling empowering and start feeling exhausting? And that's really just knowing your limits. There's a part of you that is strong and has been empowered by that strength that you have been able to navigate. But there's a moment, there's a piece, there's a part of your life that where it started to become exhausting. What is that? Where did that show up for you? Right? Was it in childhood? Right? Was it in college? Was it with your first job? Was it with when you started, with having kids or within a marriage? Or when did it show up for you? Okay. Number four, what does being strong mean to me? This kind of goes back to that initial question of defining what strong is and what your cognitions or what are the things that you think about when you think about being strong. Number five, when did I first learn I had to be the strong one? Who told you that? Who told you that, right? Who told you that you had to be strong? When did that first happen? And what was the scenario? What was the situation? Right? And I laugh, I giggle because it's like sometimes we were told to be strong in situations where it was okay to be vulnerable. It was okay to cry, right? I just got a butt whooping for a good 15 minutes. And then I was told to, hey, no, don't cry. Stop all that crying. That ain't hurt that bad, right? Like when it was that first time that you were told to be strong, and was it a valid what is it a that valid experience? I'll put it that way. Okay. When did I first learn I had to be strong? I don't know what number I'm on, y'all. That was, I think that was number five. I don't know. I lost count. Next question, where have I confused self neglect with strength? This is a tough one, y'all. Where have I confused self neglect or self abandonment with strength? I'm just going to give silence for that one. Okay. Where have I confused self neglect with strength? Because oftentimes, like I said, we talked about this a little earlier. There's often times where, especially when I'll talk about in caregiving situations, or even just in careers, right? We are told that we have to neglect, our values and neglect, our time and neglect all of the things in order to advance in this space. Now, some of it may be true. You may have to sacrifice. Like I said, I work full time. I'm in internship. I'm in classes all at the same time, and I'm a mom, right? So there's a lot of things that are involved with that, and that is somewhat of a sacrifice, right? But there is going to be a certain point where you're going to really neglect yourself to the point where you're miserable, tired, exhausted, burned out, and that creates severe levels of depression, sadness, hopelessness, right? There's no space for joy or peace or happiness. There's no nothing that you're able to see when it comes to those emotions or those things or love, all of those things. You're not able even to see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's a dark place to be, right? So if that's where you find yourself, where have I confused self neglect for strength? Oh, we need this information, so preach on. I admit that you told us the questions fast, but I've been trying to write them down. Yeah, you can always. I'm gonna save this so that way you can go back to it. I'll go back to the top. I'll go back to the top at the end, so that way you guys can write them down. Um, that was where have I confused self neglect with strength. The next one was, what am I afraid would happen if I slowed down? What am I afraid of? Or what am I afraid would happen if I slowed down? Okay. What am I afraid would happen if I slowed down? Oftentimes, we feel like we have to be strong because we're afraid of what happens if we're not. If we're afraid of what happens when we ask for help, we're afraid of what happens if we break down. We're afraid if what happens if we take a break or if we get some rest or we get some sleep. Where there's fear associated with not being strong, right? If there's fear present, why? That's what you want to ask yourself. There's two more here. What happens in my body when I need help? We've talked about that. Understanding what happens with your body. I gave you guys some examples. And then what would it look like to support myself with the same care I so freely give to others? That's a long question, so I'll say that again. What would it look like to support myself with the same care I so freely give to others? One last time, what would it look like to support myself with the same care I so freely give to others? All right. So this is again that small step. If there's things that you do for others that you don't do for yourself, why? Why is that? And what would it look like for you to do that for yourself? Just one good time. Okay. So really thinking about that. Again, you can do these questions however you wish. You ain't got to answer them all at one time. You can do one question a week, one question a day, however you want to do it. I don't want to overwhelm you with all of the questions, but I hope that they're helpful. I'll go back to the top so that way you guys can check if you're writing these down. Um, Number one was, who would I be if I didn't always have to hold everything together for everyone? And again, you can change that however you wish so that way it makes sense for you. Who would I be if I didn't always have to hold everything together for everyone? Awesome. And then number two was, what emotions have I ignored in the name of being strong? What emotions have I ignored in the name of being strong? All right. And then number three, when did strength stop feeling empowering and start feeling exhausting? When did strength stop feeling empowering and started feeling exhausting? Oh, we had 52 minutes, y'all. Good Lord. Okay, number four, what does being strong mean to me? What does being strong mean to me? Was that number four? Yeah, that was number four. Number five, when did I first learn I had to be the strong one? When did I first learn I had to be the strong one? Number six, where have I confused self neglect with strength? Where have I confused self neglect with strength? I think that was number six. Yes. And then number seven, what am I afraid would happen if I slowed down? What am I afraid would happen if I slowed down? Number eight, what happens in my body when I need help? What happens in my body when I need help? And then the last one, which was the long one, number nine, what would it look like to support myself with the same care I so freely give others? What would it look like to support myself with the same care I so freely give others? All right, y'all. I hope this is helpful. I hope this shed some light. I hope this gave you at least one thing, one new thing to think about. Again, if this is your first time, my name is Debbie. I am a certified mindfulness coach and a pre licensed therapist in internship. My books are actually open, y'all. So if you are in Illinois and you're looking for to work with me for therapy, you can always reach out to me. The link is always in the description. If you're wondering who my supervisor is, my supervisor's name is Dr. Amanda Long, who is a clinical psychologist. So she is who I am working under. Um, and so if you have questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, just come back and see me every Monday. We do this every Monday at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So make sure to check us out. I'll probably be posting a new poll at the end of the week. Well, I will be posting a new poll at the end of the week. So make sure to look out for that so that we can vote for the topic for next week. Um, and yeah, that's it, y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you next week. You can always, you're welcome, Mark, and you can always follow me at Haven Inspired, also on TikTok and Instagram. Um, and yeah, I'll see y'all soon.